Welcome to the New Testament Writings in Context course here at Lagrange College. This is Dr. Larry Asplund coming to you at the beginning of Lesson 2. I wanted to welcome you this evening to what is really the next 2 weeks, but it's Lesson 2 in the way we organize our course that will go from tomorrow, September 11th, through the 24th. It's great to be back with you. As you know, a week ago we were responding to a mandatory evacuation order down here in St. Augustine, Florida. And so, I picked up my 90-year-old parents and we headed out of Dodge and watched the TV anxiously. As you know, we actually did lose power briefly once. We had a tornado coming at us at another time. It was exciting, but we didn't get the damage that was supposed to be here. Of course, they didn't escape in the Bahamas and then went up and hit the Carolinas. So we feel blessed to be sure. And I'm just happy that, we never lost power here in my condo in my parents' home. So we feel very, very blessed. So welcome to Lesson 2. Lesson 2 learning outcomes are, first of all, to acquire a more complete understanding of the gospel writings and to think critically about their background and their role in the early church. And then number 2, to evaluate the background of other gospels in general and one in particular. So the 4 gospels that we have in the New Testament were all first century kind of early church writings, but then there were others added particularly later in the late 2nd century, early 3rd century, and they're there. They can be read as well. And so it's a factor that we want to consider together. And then number 3, to reflect on the early Christian communities that received these gospel traditions and how that message might be communicated to our own faith communities. So all of them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, were in a specific context. They were providing apostolic leadership in a faith community to a certain part of the world, whether it be Ephesus or Rome or Jerusalem or whatever it might have been. And so those communities had specific kinds of needs. Think of the Gospels not so much as biographies or history books as they are kind of collections of teachings that were intended to disciple the believers in those communities. And so it accounts for, some of the interesting differences that are still valuable for us today. So that does not in any way minimize, their value. It just puts it in context for us. So remember how our course is organized is very, very easy. We have 7 lessons. Each lesson has 2 weeks, 2 parts to it. Lesson 2 is, first of all, week 1, which, is week 3 overall. Lesson 2, week 1, September the 11th through the 17th, has a reading assignment. The reading assignment in Corey this time are just to read chapters 6, 9, and 11. And so remember, there is a reading report for all of our reading assignments. And then, as is always the case in week 1, there's a reflection essay, a 500-word reflection essay. And in this particular case, it's asking you to pick one of the Gospels and to reflect on its relevance to your personal situation. Recognizing that the Gospels were at first distributed in a certain context, later on universally. I think it's okay for us to wonder, given our own situation, how might one of those Gospels be particularly important and relevant to us? And then, of course, Lesson 2, Week 2 involves, again, a reading, but beginning in Lesson 2, your reading assignment in Week 2 will involve reading in the New Testament. So in week 2, which is September 18 to 24, I'm asking you to read the Gospels of Mark and John. Of course, you can read Matthew and Luke if you want, but in terms of a reading assignment, I'm asking you to read the Gospels of Mark and John. Remember, once again, there's a reading report in that week. And then, as is true for us, in the second week of the lesson, there will be a discussion forum. And so this case, I want you to look at the whole issue of other Gospels. In some circles, those other Gospels are popular, whether it be Gnostic Gospels or whatever it might be. And so look at that issue. and the fact that the early church rejected them. And the question is, what might have caused that rejection? And what's the issue? Why were they not eventually considered authoritative in the New Testament? And of course, that whatever that issue is, it's obviously relevant to us as well. And so that will be your week 2 assignment. Now, at the very end of that period, there will be kind of a midterm. And I'll deal with that later on. So let me not skip that for now. So the 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are very, very important to us. They are, the early church fathers referred to them as the memoirs of the apostles. And so each one is a very, very special account for us. For those who are committed Christ followers, it's just important to be able to go back and look at those Gospels and appreciate once again the teachings of Christ, the ministry of Christ, the whole significance of what we might call the Christ event in history. And so we're going to be able to do that in lesson 2. It's going to be a great time, a great opportunity to be able to share together on those. And so once again, please remember that I'm looking forward to sharing this time with you. I'm here for you, committed to you. Never hesitate to communicate with me. I will always do everything I can to serve you. I'm committed to your learning in this class, but also to your success as a student. So it's going to be a great lesson. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. God bless you, everybody. Just have a great lesson too.